The following is a recording of a June 30th Town Hall meeting by the CVTPO.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us here for this virtual town hall on the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan. This is for the Central Virginia Transportation Planning Organization. Call this plan Connect Central Virginia. We wish we could do this face to face, but unfortunately, with what we're faced with, we've gone with an online format on this open house town hall. What we wanted to do is just give in terms of our agenda, we're going to talk about what the Central Virginia TPO is, what long range plans are. Scott's going to talk a little bit about Connect Central Virginia and how it's different from what the MPO has done in the past. I'm going to talk to you about the planning process. This has started since 2019, and the project list. We actually have an interactive online map, which is on the project website. We're going to go through that list and show you some of the projects that we've scored throughout this process and get your feedback on that. We'd love to hear your input on that project list, and then talk to you about how to comment, how to go onto the project site and provide comments on those project lists. A few notes while we get started, though. With this format, this is GoToWebinar that we're using. You should be able to see a chat function there on the side of your screen. And it's a little panel with a bunch of long gray boxes in it. If you go to the very bottom, you'll see a chat function there. You can click on that and provide questions or comments throughout the meeting. We have a couple comments. I put one of hello. You can provide comments and questions here. And Scott also put a brief comment. And you can go on there, and if you have questions during the presentation, we have a staff person here. He's going to collect and read any questions that you have during the presentation portion. It's a relatively smaller crowd, so when we get into the discussion of projects, we'll pull up that list of projects on the online map. Then we'll have some discussion and open the floor for any questions that you may have. So with that said, Scott, I'm going to hand it over to you. Talk about the TPO and LRTPs and Connect Central Virginia.
Sure, thank you, Will. My name is Scott Smith. I'm the Transportation Planning Director for the Central Virginia Transportation Planning Organization. The TPO is a federally authorized organization that looks at transportation in a holistic, comprehensive way across jurisdictional boundaries. We look at the city of Lynchburg and then what we call the urbanized portions of the counties of Amherst, Bedford, and Campbell County. And I'll show you a map of that in just a minute. There are about 15 MPOs. The term MPO is Metropolitan Planning Organization. That's what the federal government calls us, but we call ourselves a transportation planning organization because we think it makes more sense to the public. But there are about 15 MPOs around Virginia, ranging from some of the smaller ones in Stanton and Waynesboro, all the way up to the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan area. Nationwide, there are a little over 340 such organizations, and we were all created to make sure that federal money that is used for transportation projects is used in a way that benefits the community, that has the approval of the community, and that is expended in a way that supports sound planning decisions and planning processes that make sure that our communities will be vibrant for decades to come. All federal funding for transportation projects and programs is channeled through the Transportation Planning Organization, so that we can make sure that that everything's being done in a comprehensive way. Next slide. Okay, well, there's the map. So this is a funny looking shape. But basically what it's showing is what we call the urbanized area around the city of Lynchburg. So it's all of the city of Lynchburg and then portions of Bedford, Campbell, and Amherst counties. Now, when we talk about urbanized area, it's the area that we consider to be urbanized now. For example, Forest, Timberlake, Madison Heights. But it's also areas that we think may have the potential of becoming urbanized over the next number of decades. And so that's why the boundary there goes a little bit further than you might think of when you think of the urban part of Lynchburg. So it goes on the northwest, it goes kind of to Eagle Eyrie and Coleman Falls. On the west, it goes to Good. On the south, it goes down to Foster Fuels and Colonial Highway at Rustburg. And then on the east, over to the Appomattox County line. And on the north, it goes up to and includes the town of Amherst. So that's the area that we are primarily focusing on this evening with this part of the long-range plan. I'll talk in a few minutes about how we're putting several parts of the plan or several plans together to make one unified plan. But the projects you're going to be seeing in a little bit this evening are really focused on this urbanized area. Next slide.
Okay.
Okay, so the long-range transportation plan is one of the primary responsibilities of organizations like the Central Virginia Transportation Planning Organization. The federal government requires that we create an LRTP, as we call it, and maintain it, updated every 5 years. So we're currently in one of those 5-year update periods. And the purpose of the plan is to look at growth that's anticipated for the next several decades, so 25 years in this case. Look at where we think growth is going to occur, how we think that growth is going to occur, and then look at what we think might be a reasonable estimate of the funding that will be coming into our area to support development of transportation projects. And using that information, we try to come up with a prioritized list of projects that our localities, the city of Lynchburg, the town of Amherst, the counties of Amherst, Bedford, and Campbell, can go out and use those projects and use the information in the plan to try to secure funding for the projects and get them into place. We're looking at not just normal, what you would consider to be normal road projects, but we're also looking at innovative intersection improvements. We're looking at bicycle and pedestrian improvements. We're also looking at briefly, we look at rail and air travel as well, but the funding for that is a little bit different. But we do look at that because it's part of the whole transportation network for the area. Next. So one thing that we're kind of excited about that's a little bit different this time is that in the past, we've had 3 separate documents that have really guided transportation investment in the Central Virginia area in the counties of Appomattox, Amherst, Bedford, Campbell, and the city of Lynchburg. And those were the urban long-range transportation plan, the rural long-range transportation plan. So that served the areas outside of that urbanized area, the town of Bedford, the communities of Montvale, Alta Vista, Brookneal, town of Appomattox, areas like that. That was a separate plan with a separate list of projects. And then we had this really exciting, innovative study called the Lynchburg Connectivity Study, which came out a few years ago, and really, for the first time in our region, linked economic development to transportation in a way that we had not seen before. And it makes recommendations on all kinds of improvements and changes to processes that can be made. And it also puts an economic value on those improvements. So we have these 3 separate documents. And so this time, with this update of the long-range plan, we're actually merging all 3 of those documents together to create what we're calling a unified long-range plan for the region, so that citizens and local government staff and elected officials can have one place to go to get information on the transportation priorities for our region. One way that we're going to help get the word out about this new unified plan this time is that we're actually developing a long-range plan website that will be interactive and updatable, that will really bring all the information that is that folks will need into one place on the website. So folks can look at safety information, they can look at project information, and it won't just be a 2-inch thick document sitting on a few shelves around the region. So we're excited about that, and we appreciate the folks who are participating in this call and who have participated in the process, helping us get to where we are now. Will?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Scott. And so part of that interaction, as Scott was mentioning, the Lynchburg connectivity study and the rural long-range plan is with the rural projects, the project lists that we have in the MPO's plan. Part of that will include rural projects that are adjacent to the MPO area, to have that one document that the region can use as its transportation plan. Another part of that is with this LRTP, we are including recommendations for additional studies. And some of these major roadways go from rural area to the downtown or to the MPO area, and doing studies of roadways crossing that boundary between rural and MPO. And then with the Lynchburg connectivity study, just a little more detail on how we're making that merger of documents is we have a couple of chapters that are really very much focused on the goals that came out of the Lynchburg connectivity study. Those goals that came out of that effort, as Scott mentioned, was an innovative effort that happened, really integrating economic development into transportation decisions. That was also included in our project evaluation process that we use to score projects. We had a large grouping of projects, over 120, I believe, which is a big list of projects for a process like this. And we ran those through and evaluated, working with a technical committee with the MPO. In terms of engagement, I mentioned this process started a little over a year ago. With this, we've had public intercepts, and the first was Get Downtown. This was last year. I have a little photo of that here. And we had a booth set up and collected public feedback. I'm trying to see where people's priorities were in terms of transportation modes. And then we also attended Centerfest a little bit later that year and did something similar with, I know with the Get Downtown, we collected over 300 comments. And I forgot the exact number with Centerfest. I believe it was under 100, but still a higher number of comments and interaction than what you would see in a typical open house. Also want to thank the VDOT Lynchburg District. They set up a Metroquest survey for us in this process. Metroquest is a surveying software that is very dynamic, and it includes maps where you can provide comments there. Many of you might have participated with that online survey, and we thank you if you did. But we received about 1,000 survey responses. And on the map, almost 2,000 individual points where we collected feedback. With COVID, as I mentioned, we had planned to have many more public intercepts where we go out to community events and festivals, set up a booth and collect comments from people in the community, really going to the public rather than asking them to come to us. Unfortunately, a lot of those events are canceled. But we are doing this town hall, and we'll be posting a draft plan in July and giving additional comments, opportunities for comments. With the survey, a member of our staff, Phil White, who's on the line, he put together these heat maps, and you can see some of the main topics that came out of that survey. There was a focus on safety. There's also a focus on alternative modes of transportation, like bike, ped, transit. That seemed to come up more often than not in a lot of the comments through that survey. You can see in terms of comments related to Safety, we have a lot of comments focused in on the Candler's Mountain Road area, and then an area west of town on the west side of the city of Lynchburg. And in the downtown area, you see also certain corridors like Ward's Road corridor and others that came up. People commented in terms of bike and pedestrian comments. They came up certainly in certain areas as well. What we did is we took these maps of where we collected feedback, where there was concentrations of comments in terms of roadways and needs, and then we overlaid that with our project list to help validate the projects that we came up with. In terms of process, last year during the summer, we identified existing transportation projects and needs. We looked through every transportation document that we could find in the region, looked through local plans, corridor studies, area plans. We developed an existing transportation needs document. We started with the public intercepts last summer, as I mentioned. In the fall, we really started to document or record, inventory all the transportation recommendations that we could find, as I mentioned. That was quite a bit. It was, I believe it was over 120. The end of last year, we worked with the MPO and their officials to draft and then later adopt a set of 2045 goals and performance measures. I'll talk about that in a moment. And in the winter, we approved those, the MPO approved those goals and performance measures. We pulled together an initial list of projects. We called that the candidate list of projects because they're projects that are candidates for the plan list of projects, the constrained list, which is Scott mentioned of how much money we can expect, public monies, federal monies we can expect in the next 20 years. And then we take that money that we can expect through funding processes, and then we look at how much the different projects cost, and we basically come up with a long-term budget of constrained budget versus cost of projects. And then since the spring, certainly with COVID having to pivot because of that, but it also allowed us to give more time to working on these projects and fleshing them out in greater detail. We're gonna have a panel discussion at the end of this, and the staff who worked on that are on the call. I'll introduce them when we get to that point. But spend a lot of time with project costs to making sure that we have a high level of confidence in the project costs that we have here. That's really a good step to take in these processes because of the way the state funds projects today with projects as they come in for submission. And this summer we have the town hall and assemble public comments on the project website. We're asking if people could provide comments by the middle of July, and we are collecting those. We'll process those comments to help feed into the plan. I mentioned the goals and performance measures. The MPO adopted 5 main goal areas, and this was very much consistent with how the state scores and funds projects across the Commonwealth. Economic development was the highest weighted goal with those performance measures. Safety was number 2. Mobility, accessibility, that's dealing with congestion and alternative modes of transportation to help reduce congestion. We also considered community and natural assets, and then operational efficiency. That's making existing transportation facilities run more efficiently. So you're not building more roads, you're making the existing ones operate more efficiently. In terms of process, it really started the beginning of this year with a project evaluation. It started with a bigger list, and we fine-tuned it working with MPO staff, VDOT staff, MPO technical committee, doing project scoring. Our staff has a project evaluation tool made up of the 16 performance measures. Across all the projects, it's something like over 1,000 data entries that involved with this, and scoring those projects with those performance measures gives us a benefit score. And with a higher level of confidence on the project costs, they can give us a basically benefit cost ratio. So you think about return on investment. Well, this is more of a cost benefit of what is the most cost effective way of meeting the transportation needs in the region. And our top 30 list here, we have, this is just a static map. We'll go into an online version of this with the map that I mentioned. But a lot of these projects are almost kind of laid out in a linear way. You have Route 460, Timberlake Road, and we'll get into each one of these on that map and have a discussion with our panel of folks who are on the call. But we wanted to focus in on the top 30 there. Again, it's a long list of projects, and as we're determining what the constrained budget is, then we can look at this top 30 list of projects and other projects if we need to pull those up. But with that top 30 list of projects, those are the ones that are the most cost effective with the highest benefit cost ratio, or the best benefit cost ratio. So how you can comment, I mean, obviously here on this call, again, we have the chat function there on the side. And when we get into the discussion, we'll take questions and comments as we have the conversation here on this call. We also have the project website, that's Connect Central Virginia 2045. We have the interactive map there. It's a Google map, which we found it's a little simpler, but also it lets you find your way, as there's names of businesses and other landmarks there that are easy to find. You can also call the CVTPO offices at the number here if you would like to call staff and leave comments there, and then info@cvpdc.org. You can go on there and provide comments via email. If you would like to send comments over mail, we also have a mailing address here as well. And we would like to collect those comments before or by July 15th, by the middle of next month. If you go on the website, we have a couple different comment boxes. You can look at the online version of the project list with that map, put in the project number, and then give us feedback on that project. And you can enter that as many times as you'd like, or if you'd like to just leave a general comment, you can go on and just give us the topic. And if there's something you feel is not addressed in that project list, we'd love to hear about it as well. So I'm gonna jump onto that online map, but in terms of next steps in the process, we're gonna have process the public comments here. The TPO is gonna review drafts as we're getting into July, spend the summer fine tuning that, and have a public hearing at the end of the summer. And as Scott mentioned, we're gonna have the TPO is gonna put together this online version of the plan, which will be much more user-friendly. So I'm gonna hop off the PowerPoint here and bring up this map just to introduce the folks we have on the call who are going to help us answer questions on this next segment. We've got about half an hour left for our time slot here, but we have Bill Wench. He is the project principal on this project, and he's lead engineer, transportation engineer for EPRPC. We are located in Charlottesville, Virginia, and Bill has years and years and years of experience with engineering projects throughout this region, planning projects, and has worked on many of these projects that are listed here. We also have Phil White on the line, and Phil actually spent a lot of time on this with the project identification and scoring through this process. We have Marissa Sperry, who's on the line as well, and she's recording any comments that we may have through this process. Obviously, Scott Smith and David Cook we have on the line with VDOT staff, as well as Rick Youngblood. So with that said, before we get into this list, I did want to open it up for questions and see if there are any questions before we look at the actual project list. Are there any questions out there?
So if you, this is Scott, if you have a question, there are two ways of asking it. One is you can do the little hand raise thing, and that'll let us know that you would like to be unmuted. And then you can also use the chat box to send a message to the organizers and panelists.
Yeah. Just leave a couple more seconds to see if there's any comments. All right. Well, we'll get into the online version of this map. What we'll do is the projects in red, those are the top 30 projects that came out of the scoring process that I'd mentioned earlier, the project evaluation. And we'll take this corridor by corridor. Most of these are along the same corridor, just different projects along that segment. The projects in orange, or kind of an orange yellowish color, those are all the other projects that we had scored during this process. Some of them might have been ranked very near the top 30. There's this project on Wards Road. It is Access Management Project, and it's ranked number 34. Not quite in the top 30, it's very close, but you can look up and see all the different projects that we've evaluated through this process and look at the rank. It says rank here, so this is rank 55. It's a multimodal capacity expansion as an example. But we're going to focus in on those top 30 projects just as a start. Zoom in here, just south of the city. This is the 460 corridor. This just came out of a study that was recently done. It's a Route 460 arterial preservation study. We have a few intersection projects here. This one was ranked 29. It's actually a recent addition to our list of projects. This is I believe this one is an R-cut for a project here. Relatively low cost on these, so projects with low costs are typically going to score better with the state's funding methodology when they score projects. So we try to use a similar methodology here. We have another project here, and this is at Turkeyfootroad. It's a median closure and construction of 2 median openings. So it is an access management improvement there at that intersection. And then we have at New London Drive and 460, we have another access management study, access management safety improvement. And this is a restricted U-turn project here. So that's our first corridor, starting south and moving up. Just want to see if there are any comments on those projects for 460. Rick or David, do you have any additional explanation of these or any additional comments?
This is Rick Youngblood. You know, the key aspect of these particular projects is they've already gone through a number of rounds of public involvement and public comment. And so some of these projects should not come as a surprise to individuals who may be participating. Of course, they may. But the key point is a number of these major routes, 29 and 460 specifically, have come out of studies that have gone through numerous rounds of public involvement and public outreach. So they are formidable, vetted projects that you know, provide substantial benefit to protecting the corridor's capacity and providing safe travels for the general public.
And Will, this is Scott. I would just add to what Rick just said. These projects that we're looking at on, say, US 29 and US 460, both of those highways are what we call, or what VDOT calls, corridors of statewide significance. They're not interstates, but they are vital to our region as connectors between our region and other cities. And so that term, you'll folks, the members of the public who are on this call, may hear us use the term arterial preservation. And that's really a way of making sure that these significant highways can still operate as connectors between our city and other cities. that the traffic moving from city to city can get through the area quickly and efficiently, and that those areas don't become bogged down by development and lots of entrances, driveway entrances, and other things that slow traffic down. So once it's incredibly expensive for us, the public, to have to purchase right of way to make roads bigger or to make improvements on roads. Making roads bigger doesn't always help, but we're trying to keep that investment that was made many decades ago, and keep those roads functional.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. You kind of cut out a little bit at the end there, but I think you were.
This is Rick. Let me add one additional thought here for individuals that may be participating. In order to get projects funded, we go through a variety of efforts to identify proper funding streams. And one of the things that you may see that you're not familiar with is some of these concepts of restricted crossing U-turns, roundabouts, what we call alternative intersections. And in order for the Central Virginia TPO region to be a competitive region for funds, whether that's highway safety improvement funds, smart scale, revenue share, there's a variety of funding streams out there. In order to have this region be a competitive region, we have to look at alternatives that meet the demand and meet the needs of the corridors. And as Scott mentioned, money is money. We can't go in 6-lane corridors. Right-of-way is expensive. Infrastructure is expensive. So we have to try, and what the consultants and what we're trying to do in these updates is maximize benefit to the cost aspect. So if you have specific questions related to particular alternatives, whether in this venue or other venues, please ask those questions so that we educate you up front.
Great. Thanks, Rick. So we'll move on to the next corridor where we have several projects. This is Timberlake coming through. This is south of 501. And with Timberlake Road, here we have this down near the Dollar Tree area, if you're familiar with that area. Some of these projects are a hard time highlighting. If you could go on the website and click on those, make sure that some of the segment ones are a little finicky. Sometimes it helps to zoom out and click on those. But some of these are our highest ranking projects. This is number 2. As Rick mentioned, these restricted U-turns. Again, access management. This is all here in the Westward Park area. Ranked number 9, that next one. Number 12, again, this is a high of the top 30. This is the top half. Again, restricted U-turns, sidewalks, left lane storage for this project. And then here south of 501, we have 2 more. You can kind of get your bearings a little bit by looking at the Google map. We have 2 more access management projects here. Again, I gotta zoom out to really click on those. There's one more that did not quite make the top 30. And with that one, that's a project that we did evaluate and have listed in here, but within the top 30, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projects on Timberlake. Let's see if we have any comments on that. If no, we kind of pivot over into this is the Wards Road area. We do have projects, like I mentioned, that we evaluated on Wards Road south of 460. This these segments here ranked pretty high. They're close to the top 30. We'll have to take a look at these as we're finalizing the list of projects. If any of those you feel should be in the top 30 or are high need projects, we've been asking local MPO officials to flag those for us. We can go back through and enhance those projects in a way to help them score better. But those enhancements to help define those projects in the best way we can, it's important that the scoring process is consistent with the states. So we're not just improving that ranking within the study, but also improving those rankings as it is associated with state funding. We do have one project here off of Wards Road. This is ranked number 13. And this is a single lane roundabout. You see the CVCC Campus Drive and Wards Ferry Road intersection. Moving up just north of there, this is Candler's Mountain Road corridor as we get into the city. And this is Lynchburg Expressway here. We have improvements to the ramp. We have access management improvements here as we get onto Wards Road. Between Candler's and Wards Road, if you're familiar with that intersection. And then additional intersection improvements east of Lynchburg Expressway. And I'll leave any questions or comments about those. If there are none, we have additional projects as we're going up 29. And these are ramp improvements. Some of these are ramp improvements with deceleration lanes. This is to extend those lanes as you're getting on and off of 29. Extend northbound acceleration lane. So if you're familiar, I mean, obviously most of you are of driving along this corridor, those acceleration lanes can be very limited. So trying to get enough speed to get onto 29 there. And then another project here, it's a multimodal expansion. And this is a road diet there on Kemper Street. Let's see if we have any comments there or questions.
Will, this is Scott. I would just mention that a road diet, that's kind of a professional lingo, but a road diet is when you have a roadway that may be built to a certain standard a long time ago, certain width and a number of lanes, but that number of lanes isn't really required anymore for the amount of traffic that's on it. We can do other things with that asphalt rather than just have it 4 or 5 lanes or whatever. And so the Campbell, that's actually Kemper Street transitioning to Campbell Avenue. There's a corridor study and a plan for Campbell Avenue. In fact, the city had several workshops in that neighborhood to share the process with the public a couple of years ago, I believe.
Great. Thanks, Scott. If we move up to Amherst, we have projects here on 29. Get these to show up. Yeah, so these are access management projects once again. And when we say access management safety, that's really, it's how you access the main roadway and how you get from the main roadway to the uses that are adjacent to that corridor. And that could be intersection improvements, median enhancements, others. It's really, those are focused more on safety more often, but access management can also have, can really influence congestion as well as cars are turning in and out of a corridor. We have Madison Heights here, so this is just north of Madison Heights. Open up if there's any comments from panelists or any questions from anybody else. If there are none, then we'll move off to this last corridor here. This is Graves Mill Road. This one came up, or these projects scored well in the process. With intersection reconstruction here, one-lane roundabout. Over here on the east side of the corridor with McConville. We have also widening with pedestrian improvements here on Graves Mountain on the other side of 501. Additional install median, widen, add multi-use path here on Graves Mill Road, the segment. So different phases or pieces to these improvements as we go out. And this is over on, this last project is on Enterprise Drive and Forest Road, intersection construction. It's right turn lanes, sidewalks, and other PED features. So any comments on those projects over there on the western side of our list?
I would just add, this is Scott again, that if folks remember seeing the map of hotspots, the heat map that was shown in the beginning of the presentation, that showed kind of where public input said there were a lot of, that there were challenges. One of those hotspots was the intersection of 501 of Forest Road, the Lynchburg Expressway, Lakeside Drive, and Old Forest Road. The reason why you don't see a project, a new project there, is because that has been funded, the improvements for that intersection. Actually, I do see a couple of pins in that neighborhood, but the major project has been funded there. So as things are funded, we check them off the list, and we start looking at other improvements that can be made elsewhere. And that's why this long range plan is so important, because it helps us determine what's most important and what to go after first.
Yeah. And I think that's another, you know, Scott, your vision of having this be an online document too, that's going to allow you to make these updates to this plan. When you get on that 5th year of a long range plan, there can be a lot of components that are out of date, but having something that's reviewed and more of a living plan will really help with that. Do we have any comments or questions about, it could be about any of these projects specifically, or it could be something more general? If there's anything that you feel is missing, any glaring omissions here, or and I will mention, the plan will have this constrained list of projects, but it will also have something called the vision list. And in the vision list, those might not be constrained. It might not be in that high priority list of projects, or it might not fit within what the budget that we can expect in the next 20 years. But the visioning list, it's still important. Those projects, by being in the plan, can still qualify for funding. And so by being in the vision list, it's not gonna stop any of those projects from moving forward if there's an opportunity. And because of that, all the projects that we evaluated, we're including in the vision list. And there's also other areas where we found deficiencies. It could be with congestion, it could be with safety, it could be a multimodal type of project. Those projects where there's a deficiency or need, but there's not a project already identified, we're including those in the vision list as well as a next step, as a list of areas to feed into the TPO's work as they're looking at their annual work program, to help VDOT staff as they're looking for the potential for additional studies, STAR studies, and others in the future. So we think that's going to be an important component to this plan as well, of not only what projects exist that we've vetted and we've had these processes, but also what's the pipeline of projects for the future, and how are we going to study those and move those forward as well. Well, Scott, do you have any additional comments or?
I would just thank folks for participating in this. This is an experiment doing one of these online, but what we found is for previous plans when we've done these meetings in physical locations, it's often hard for people to get to and share their opinions. So we appreciate folks joining us on the online version, and we would invite you to go to centralvirginia2045.com over the next week or two to take a look at these projects, and take a look at the documents that are being posted there, and provide us with any comments that you have. We want input from you. Sorry, connect centralvirginia2045.com. And if folks could do that by July 15th, we would greatly appreciate it, so that we can provide those comments to our policy board as they move forward with the plan.
Great.
And so Will right now is showing you where that map is. There's the top 30 projects with other projects in orange, so you could go and look through that. And then that top 30 project list on the left is a PDF file, I think, that you can look through that gives more detail.
Yep.
And then there's the comment form, and Will can talk about how to fill that in.
Yeah, and again, you can, if you have a comment about a specific project, let's say project 7, you can just put that in, enter your comment there and submit. And you can submit as many times as you'd like, and we'll collect those, that feedback. And then if you have any additional comments that aren't necessarily attributed to a project, we'll be collecting those as well. And the engagement, this has been an important part of the process. We want to make sure that the project and the lists here are well vetted. They've been vetted generally in other processes already, but as a group of projects, we want to make sure that this is something that the community supports, and that we provide as many opportunities as we can to hear from the community. So I thought I'll leave just a few more moments to see if anybody else had questions or comments. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, I'd like to thank you for participating. And we will be working with the TPO. We'll be working on a draft of the plan, which we'll be reviewing together here in July, and keep an eye out for a draft of that as that goes public. And please visit the website and provide a comment, and I'll be very much part of the process. So thank you all for participating.